Everyone, Regal Reviews here. It is White Rice Wednesday, so it's time for my Survivor recap. So to recap on this week's episode, basically starts off like it does any other episode. They come back from Tribal, and with Julia being gone next week, Jason lost his final alliance member, so now he's on the bottom and literally has nobody out there. Well, everybody seems to be in a good place. Ty thinks he's in a very good position because he does have that advantage and he does have that idol. And I believe he did mention that at the next vote he will use his advantage, and then the next vote after that he'll use his idol, because at Final Five is the last time you can use any advantages or idol. So Ty is guaranteed to go to the Final Four. And Jason's feeling, I wouldn't say he's feeling lost, but he's just feeling discouraged because all of his alliance members are gone and nobody will strategize with him. I mean, he kind of got what was coming to him in a way after he and Scott took the machete away, and he kind of showed his villainous side. But, I gotta give Survivor credit. This reward challenge this week was amazing. I don't think I've ever seen a challenge like this in Survivor. It was basically 3 teams of 3, and they had to go through this obstacle course, and they had to, they've had maze challenges before, but they had to actually stand on this, and they had to work together to like walk around and get these 3 balls in these holes here. And it looked like a very difficult challenge. I mean, it literally took a lot of teamwork, but I think once you get the hang of it, it's easy, and you surely saw that in this challenge. The teams were Jason, Ty, and Michelle, I believe, and then the other ones were Joe, Aubrey, and Sydney. And Joe was going pretty slow in the challenges like he usually does, and that kind of cost them a little bit of time. But Jason's team definitely worked together as a team, and they definitely got the hang of the challenge quickly, while Joe's team couldn't even get 1 ball in the hole. Like, they were struggling with it the whole time, and it ended up being Jason, Ty, and Michelle that won the reward challenge. And I definitely think this reward challenge was definitely fit for Ty, because all know that he's an animal lover, and they all got to go do a animal sanctuary and have a picnic. So, I thought that was a great reward, but I couldn't help thinking to myself, if they're going to an animal sanctuary, I hope the meal served at the picnic is an animal product, So they seem to, all have a good time at the reward challenge. Jason brought up, that his daughter has autism, and said that she is fascinated with animals and loves animals, and I have autism myself, and lots of people with autism benefit from pet therapy. So it was really nice to see that side of Jason. But at the same time, I believe it was Michelle who, no, actually it was Ty who mentioned about Jason's autistic daughter, and said that he might be, well, he said that it was nice to see a different side of him, but he also said might be that he shouldn't maybe take Jason to the end. But back at camp, there was some tension going on, because Joe was obviously upset that he lost the challenge, and he was kind of, I actually wouldn't say he was dictating people around, but he was getting kind of bossy with Aubrey and Sydney, and Sydney wasn't having anything of it. Like, she made it clear in this episode she doesn't like to be told what to do, and she said she's not going to be able to put up with this the whole time. So that kind of sets off a red flag in a way, because, Sydney can, snap like that, But the immunity challenge was quite interesting, because it was kind of like a balance thing. They had to hold on to this rope and grab these letters that spelled immunity, and they had to go back and get 1 block at a time. and if their tower tipped over, they had to go back and start over. And they had to hold on to this rope and keep walking back, And even Jeff said it. Like, I've never seen a challenge where the lead in the challenge has shifted. It shifted so many times. Like, Ty was in the lead, then Michelle, then Jason and Aubrey almost had a stack, and all fell over. And all throughout the challenge, Sydney had this kind of strategy to go as slow as possible. And at one point, Jeff said that Sydney was out of it, but at one point, everybody's towers fell over, and Sydney was then in first place. So that really does show you that you can never give up in Survivor. But I found it kind of funny that Joe, like, once he got a few blocks stacked, he was actually spelling immunity wrong. He did it like 3 or 4 different times. I felt bad for him, but at the same time, I'm like, you're on Survivor and you don't know how to spell immunity. And in the end, it ended up Sydney winning immunity, and congrats to Sydney. This is her first immunity win, and that was one intense challenge, so congrats to Sydney. Back at camp, Jason couldn't really talk to anyone because, he has no one to talk to. So Ty wanted to talk to everybody before Michelle came over, and he's trying to push for Michelle to go home because Ty made a point saying that Michelle hasn't made any enemies on the jury, so they should get rid of her quickly. And Ty does make a valid point. Michelle has not made any enemies on the jury, and depending on who's on the jury, they might want to see that type of person win the $1 million. So he's trying to push for Michelle, but Sydney doesn't want to vote for Michelle. She wants to get rid of Jason, and Aubrey is kind of up in the air about it because, she has been with Sydney this whole time. Like, she wants to get rid of Jason, but she's also, like, shown some loyalty to Ty, and she thinks that getting rid of Michelle might be best. But then Sydney goes around and tells Michelle what Ty's plan is, and Michelle is furious, so this is going to make for one interesting tribal. At Tribal Council, it was very heated. Like, all the heat was thrown at Ty, and Michelle made some good points because Ty, no matter what alliance he was in, he has double-crossed them. But he was trying to say, well, my advantage might be an idol, it may not be, I don't know. Like, he was kind of acting a bit arrogant in a way, which is kind of annoying. But he was also trying to say that within their alliance that there's somebody that there's someone on the bottom and someone who just doesn't fit in. He was like heavily implying that was Michelle, and I disagree. And Michelle even brought up that she's shown her loyalty time after time, and she has. So I definitely don't think Michelle's on the bottom of that alliance. I definitely think Ty or Joe is definitely on the bottom. Well, Ty, But it was getting heated, and you could see the looks on the jury's faces. They looked like they were very entertained by what was going on, and Jason's sitting over there not saying a word because in this type of situation you don't want to have the heat suddenly thrown at you. Then, so he's just says, "Hey Jeff, how's it going?" I thought that was so funny, and even Jeff had some sass in this episode. I think at one point when Joe was misspelling the words, he said, "This is funny," and Jeff said, "Yeah, it's funny till you go to tribal." I'm like, oh my god, I've never heard Jeff say that before. But this episode, Ty did play his advantage, and his advantage, in case anybody didn't know, was that he gets an extra vote, and his extra vote was for Michelle. And in the end, ended up being Jason that got voted off, and it was kind of bittersweet for me because I ended up starting being Team Jason, but with him and Scott, stealing the machete and showing their villainous ways, I kind of had mixed feelings about him going forward. I mean, I definitely think he got what was coming to him. I mean, he was kind of saying, like, nobody will strategize with me, nobody will do this, and he kind of gave up. And I'm like, well, of course nobody will strategize with you. I mean, look what you and your alliance have done. But on the same time, I kind of wanted him to win for his daughter, because, you know, his daughter has autism, and I thought that would have been really nice if, you know, he could have won for his daughter. So the previews for next week show that they're kind of furious that Ty's plan to get Michelle off kind of backfires, but then the next moment you see Michelle and Ty kind of forming an alliance. So I never thought that would happen, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens next week. So it also made me think, because there's been no Loved Ones episode yet, and I was disappointed because usually when there's a 6 or a 5, they've usually bring the Loved Ones out. But it made me think, because usually when there's a final 3, they usually start the finale episode off with 5 people. But since they're going into 5 next Wednesday, and there's no finale, I have to say that I think that there's going to be a final 2 this season instead of a final 3, which would be, since Cagayan, there hasn't been a final 2 since Cagayan, so that would be interesting to see who goes to the final 2. I'm hoping Aubrey and Sydney can pull it off, but we'll have to wait and see. If you want to catch Survivor, it is on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. on CBS. I hope you guys enjoyed Survivor tonight, and I hope you guys enjoyed my Survivor recap. Like, subscribe, and remember, stay regal.